one of the coolest miracles that happens in this is that the guy that was going berserkers didn't have to be, beat up or shot or anything, they didn't have to be detained. He went off, nobody was hurt, nothing violent had to happen whatsoever, and I witnessed a complete transformation. And it's insane. It's just insane to see how powerful the truth is.
I am of the pure mind of God. I am the resurrection and the life in my body, my finances, my relationships, and my world. I qualify everything in my world with perfection. I am perfection. I am this perfect day, and the life that lives in me is the light that cannot fail. I accept only God's perfection, His good, in my outer circumstances. I know in my heart that God is all in all. I am absolutely not concerned about what happens, because I know wonderful things are happening now.
So in today's transmission, there's going to be some foul language, not from me, but you're going to hear some crazy stuff, like literally crazy. So stay tuned for that. You're going to see some breakthrough concepts. I'm going to give you 10 keys that'll unlock everything for you, financially speaking. And I'm going to show you how you can get that exclusive ongoing training. Also, I want to tell you what happens at the end. All right, I don't get to share that with you, so I'm going to share it in the beginning before we go. You can't make this stuff up. There's going to be a guy you're going to see in this video, clips of it, obviously out of his mind. Anyway, I'll show you a little bit of the prayer that was going on. I was doing some prayer and just observing, and what happened was, it was about, how you doing? I'd say about 40 minutes later, I'm coming back down from Bullrath Park, and I'm heading down this bike path, and it was like a standoff in the Old West. He's walking up and I'm walking down. I lock eyes on him, and it's like he never even remembered any of what happened. And I felt the love and the peace and the compassion coming off of him. He looked as gentle as like an innocent 5-year-old. He was walking, and he was like walking up like this, up the hill. And I'm super clairsentient, empathic. I felt him. And whatever was going on within him had been taken out. It was gone. You can't make this stuff up, and I have no incentive to make this stuff up for you. This is just my life. This is what it's like when you're in the flow all the time. You just allow for these amazing experiences that make no logical sense. And you'll hear me say this in a little bit, that the impossible is the only thing possible to God. So at the end, and I didn't want to record this for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't want to exploit another person's suffering and put their actual close-up identity on the camera. So I don't think it's appropriate to do that. The other thing is, I just wanted to really take the moment in and just give thanks to God, because I really know that whatever was going on with this guy, it was gone. See, I walked right past him, as it was like he never even saw me to begin with. He didn't even recognize nothing, and he was just totally pieced out, like he just came down from the terror that was tormenting him. I really believe that was the shift that happened. I really believe that whatever was going on was separated as the carnal mind, as the nothingness, and it broke that dream. I'm going to give you step by step. I'm going to show you in real time how I prayed to break that dream. I had no intention to ever cross paths with this gentleman again. He sort of walked off, went off into the distance, and he went that way towards the pier. I went that way, all the way to Volrath, and that's about another 3 miles up that way. I happened to come back, and I crossed him one-on-one, mano-a-mano, right on that path, right down. He didn't even recognize that it was me, didn't even have a clue. He just walking, looking at the lake, looked at me, looked back at the lake, totally pieced out. No more of the screaming, no more of the yelling, none of that stuff. It was all gone. This is the miraculous. This is the world of the miraculous. This is just being the witness, the witnessing consciousness. So at the end, I'll do a card spread and I'll show you what I pulled after this using the V.I.P app. And the cards really laid out exactly what happens in this transmission. So when you're in the flow and when you're living in the righteousness, transferring the energy to the right side, all time collapses into this moment. And you live ahead of your now, and you're catching up to what already is. It's super amazing. Anyway, let's get to the transmission. Hey, it's Matthew. So even if you're not going to stay and watch this video, I'm going to bless you immediately. I'm going to tell you about the new workshop that I'm launching on the 22nd of this month, and you need to be there. Now, here's why you need to be there, because these are the 10 commandments for divine supply. I've been doing this a long time, a very, very long time, with a lot of obsessive, compulsive thought on the subject and the proof to back my claims. All of my claims come from Scripture. That's where I learn all this stuff, from people who have walked before me that are experts, and from the actual word itself, and then doing it and seeing God's hand. I want you to join me, and the link is below in the description. So before we begin, here's a crazy story. So back in 2009, I was out in St. Louis, and at the time, had the illusion of Lyme disease, really not doing well. And so I decided to do this brain state learn about my brain waves, etc. I went out and did these brain monitoring sessions, and really crazy because I I had an experience there, and I want you to hear this story. It's really powerful. They were measuring my brain waves, and they're like, dude, you're like running theta brain waves all the time. Did you have a lot of head injuries? And I'm like, well, allegedly, yeah. 4 head concussions, and I'm always in an altered state. I've been that way my whole life. Well, I live in like an alpha theta brainwave for the most part, which also is very conducive to being tuned in to the realm of what you call spirit. So when I read Scripture, I can pierce right through it. I can see it. And so I guess that's the blessing inside the curse, right? Well, everything worked together for good for those who love the Lord, and I love the Lord, Romans 8:28. So my own weakness becomes my strength. All right, now here's the big idea. When I was sitting there doing that, there was a lightning bolt that hit the building, and it blew the roof of the building right out. So I was sitting in the chair all hooked up to the monitors, and you have to sit there for, like a 2-hour session each time. And all of a sudden, boom! And then it was like right outside the room where I was, the whole roof just caved in and collapsed. I thought that was pretty symbolic, because if God's trying to get your attention, that's one way God can get your attention. So there was some big ideas that I learned about myself in that study, that training, whatever it was. Anyway, I tune into this stuff. I don't even know what I'm going to promote when I do my new workshops. I literally hear and I see the voice of the Spirit coming through me. And then I just go with it. I can automatic write, I can channel, whatever these things you want to call it. And God said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to teach money now. That's going to be the Money Mastery Clinic. Again, the link is below. Check it out. Look at it. I've made it doable for anybody. It's based on your own faith and your own covenant with God. All right, I'm not excluding anybody. All right, I want everybody to know this. This is coming for you at this time based on the seasons that we're in. So anyway, here's what came to me, and I challenge anyone to take this course. I challenge you to go through these with me one by one in this clinic, because I'm going to teach you about all of them, and I'm going to show you how to integrate them precisely into a daily habit routine so that you can fire off most of them, if not all of them, and just one of them, which I'll show you next, has the ability to change your entire life. See, whatever one you're not doing in here, it's like looking at a diagnostic under the hood. I can say, well, listen, you're not firing here, here, and here. Why don't we just get you firing on these and see what happens? You see, I can look at where you are. This is the Torah of money. God says this is the Torah of money. I don't make this stuff up. I just channel it. The 10 money commandments for divine supply. Number 1, the tithe belongs to God. Use it to discharge the debts. I'm going to show you about electricity. I'm going to show you about how it fractals and about how it works. I'm going to show you the secrets about the tithe, about the language, about the words, everything that it has to do with. I'm going to break it down for you. Number 2, the debts come from ignorance of the Father's allness. I'm going to show you what debts are, and I'm going to show you what to do about it. Number 3, you cannot please God if you are in the flesh. Fact. 100% fact. Whenever honor flows up, favor flows down. You have to please your Creator in order to be in the covenant. Number 4, when man thinks he's giving, he's receiving. That's something God told me in 2019. I put it on my first card deck, and I live by that. I know that that's the truth. An unselfed love receives immediate divine assistance. Number 5, divine ideas are man's daily manna. All God did was speak in the Bible. Ideas are your daily supply. You have to switch the physical for the spiritual. Number 6, joy is the compass to supernatural provision. It's the compass to your destiny. Number 7, resting is receiving. Number 8, life supports itself. Number 9, forgiveness brings increase. Number 10, focus is the difference in men and incomes. When you realize how powerful this is, you'd have to be crazy not to take this course. I'm not making this stuff up. God reveals it to me. I'm just sharing it with you. I've lived it. I've seen God's hand. I want you to see God's hand. That's what a minister does. So let me show you one of those keys. Okay. This is Joe. And this is quite amazing, actually. He was in our workshop with Michael Jaco. And that was our first one we did in Sheboygan right before the thing began in 2020. So Journey to Healing, okay. So the important part here is it talks about Joe Krantz was looking for healing in 2020 and ended up with a job at the AU ranches. He learned about Christian Science from a YouTuber in Wisconsin, that would be yours truly, who conducted healing workshops. He was telling me to follow my highest joy, Joe relates. My highest joy at the time was learning more about Christian Science and nature. So he ended up going to California and getting together with Lona, who's one of my spiritual advisors. She recommended he goes to this ranch. He got the job, and he was the on the cover of the magazine for, I guess it was Employee of the Year. But not only that, but he just looks happy. He looks great. Following your joy, powerful. If you guys were at the workshop, you know him. So anyway, that's one of the 10 things that you can apply to your life. Super powerful. Howdy, partner. I've always wanted to say that. Country western style. Got to get my spurs on. Clank, 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 clank. Actually, when I used to live in the country, that was fun. I have cowboy boots. I've worn them at a couple workshops. They're kind of, cowboy boots are kind of what cuts the line. Either you love them or you don't. And I know some people don't. I could go either way. I love them. I actually love them. I think they're fun. Nothing like the extra inch and a half that it gives me, so I just prop up a little taller. I could use that. So anyway, well, I shared with you, I'm excited. I really am excited about these 10, commandments for divine supply. This is like for the new economy. We're in a new economy. And the economies change, but the principles don't ever change. So the reason why it's for the new economy is because what happens is the sands of time, if you will, no pun intended, they shift around. And humanity has to be brought back to its principal, foundational reflection. See, you're the reflection of God, and humanity's become sort of haughty and proud with all the technology and the disconnect. It's funny because they're so connected, but yet they're more disconnected than ever. And that's, again, I was telling you, the blessing is the curse is the blessing. So, apparently a lot of head injuries, altered state of consciousness all the time, like theta all the time. Well, it's not so useful all the time, but for what I love and what God uses me for, I love it because it works. Well, if you're connected all the time to the wireless networks and you're always being distracted with your 8-second attention span, well, then there's key number 10. Focus is the difference. See, in life, and I'll give you we'll talk about one of the keys, okay? Because the way that the real methodologies work is that we're going to go backwards. We're going to go from 10 to 1, just like I do the 3-2-1. And if you don't know the 3-2-1, it's the best teaching I've ever done, because it's what took me from where I was bedridden and bankrupt with Lyme disease to crawling out of that and manifesting a 6 and a 7-figure business out of thin air. How? Who knows? All the ideas came. Everything just popped into my awareness, and that's what happens. Spirit breaks the bubble of the dream that you call lack and begins to reveal the kingdom to you one glimpse at a time by following those keys. 3-2-1. I know most people are too arrogant and haughty to want to tithe, and they think that they know everything. But the ones who are called by wisdom, they understand this. And I know that most people can't let go of, forgiving other people or themselves, or they really want to hold on to something, and that's why they don't scale up their wealth, because they can't. Because anyone or anything you hold outside of God's love, you are actually holding yourself in persecution. And in the training, I'm going to break down what persecution actually means, and I'm going to talk to you about all the words so you have a complete understanding. Okay? Now, I know that most people don't have the cojones to follow the fastest path to their joy in every moment, because they're afraid that life doesn't support itself, which is another key that we're going to talk about in the 10 Commandments for the divine supply. These have to be broken. These myths, these carnal, institutionalized traditions of men have to become shattered as illusions. And the only thing that will do that is glimpses of truth. And so I can lead you to the water that you can drink from, and you can hunger and thirst for righteousness in this capacity. And that's what I'm here to do. That's why I chose the path that I'm on today. Because it's my way of loving you. My way of loving you is showing you the path that I take, and this radical reliance on God is what I'm a proponent of, is radical reliance on God. I am not a linear, logical, analytical, sit around and contemplate your navel 24/7 type person. I don't plan any of this stuff. I am in the moment, and the moment guides and governs itself as the expression where I become the instrument for that. The music plays me. And I think that's a level of spiritual surrender that brings about the radical reliance in truth and wisdom. And you should try it. I'm not saying you should give yourself wholeheartedly to it and just dive right in right now and just be like, that's it. Don't blow yourself out of the water. Just tip your toe in it and try it. Because once wisdom guides you into one step, the next step, and the next step, and the next step will all be doable. It's kind of like I did I do like 500 air squats every day in conjunction to, other things that I do and workouts. And it's not like I do 500 in one set. I do one air squat 500 times. You take one step at a time, and the strength comes to take the next and the next and the next, because you're being fulfilled from an inexhaustible spiritual source. Okay? That's really what the path of back to the Father repentance is. Spirit is my source. I'm heading back to the Spirit. And because I am all in, I'm sold out. Whatever is needed shows up in the moment when I need it. Therefore, take no thought for my life. Or at least as little as possible. Okay, that's the truth. Now, am I going to make mistakes? 100% guaranteed. Certain. It is certain that I'm going to make mistakes. And you are too. Am I going to have days where I feel like even I want to quit? Like, this is too much. I don't know if I want this. Well, in my human weakness, yes. But then again, I go back to my wisdom and I turn off human weakness by recognizing it doesn't exist. There is no human condition. There is no separate entity outside of God's allness. And weakness doesn't exist in God's allness. And so then I cling steadfast to a divine principle and I hold on for dear life, hodl. I hodl the truth. And you see, just like the cryptocurrency markets, they try to shake you out, Well, the carnal mind is going to shake you out. As you go deeper and deeper into this, the carnal mind will try to shake you out. And that's why you should join these clinics I put on, because I put you together with other people. And I give you the opportunity to work with the ideas with others so that you're not getting shaken out. Case in point, the healing clinics that we're doing. Right now, I'm starting to have people report their healings. Okay? This is phenomenal. This is what it's all about. Okay? So, I'm excited about that. That's, I love God. I just love this path. I love this journey. I know the world can be a very treacherous place. And it's only that way because it forces you to turn the right way. Wisdom governs all, including what you call the evil ones. Wisdom governs all. That's why we don't want to hold anyone or anything outside of God's love. Because then we are setting ourselves up to condemn ourselves. And that's why, again, this is why I don't sit here all day on every stream, or any stream actually, and tell you who the evil people are and what they're doing. And I think that's sort of obvious by now, that if you want to peg a name and a face to certain things, you can. But my caution to you is that by doing so, you've just condemned God's creation. And so what do you do then? You separate the carnal mind from that creation. And recognize that everything you see, smell, hear, taste, and touch, coming from the carnal mind's perception of its own crimes, is really trying to condemn you. So as you condemn the other, you condemn yourself, because the carnal mind convicts you of what you accuse the other person of. See, that's how trickery works. Is it gets you to punish yourself. And that I do not recommend, because it doesn't bring the grace. It doesn't bring the healing. And it certainly doesn't open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing so much so that you have not enough room to contain it. Now, again, I don't script this. I'm just here to be in service and to do what I love. And this is my way of completing the giving and receiving cycle. See, when man thinks he's giving, he's receiving. I love Wednesdays. I used to tithe on Fridays. I tithe on Wednesdays now. I don't know why it happened. It just switched. Maybe I was a little impatient one week and I just changed it up. Okay, so when I tithe, the thought of love is always pegged to that giving. Because without love attached to it, there is no tithe. There is no blessing without love in the equation. What am I loving? I'm loving the idea that wisdom is reaching me through the dream, through the folly of a preacher, or from something that the carnal mind beholds. Wisdom still enters the dream. That's the story of Jesus in the flesh. Clothing deity in carnality is an impossibility, and yet the only thing that is possible in God's kingdom is the impossible. You know, I heard Jesse Duplantis say that one time, and it really got me thinking. It got me thinking. The only thing possible in God's kingdom is the impossible. Well, and I thought, well, that's magnificent. What do I do with that? Well, I told these stories last night, and I'm going to tell them again. I think this is a good place to share how God's kingdom works. So in 2018, I was at a healing workshop with like a traveling minister who has, an organization similar to ours. He teaches, he does books. Just a healing minister. Really good turnout. There's probably 100 people in the room, maybe a little more. That's a good turnout for, the kind of stuff that I go to. I don't go to the secular religious things. I go to the kind of the evangelist, the true gospel is sort of outside of religion. Okay, you have to kind of dig a little bit. You have to look for the demonstration. Healings are breaking out. Well, healings were breaking out, so I said, I got to be there. So I'm there, and I'm watching, and he's talking, and he's moving his hand about, and I notice he doesn't have a watch. I'm thinking, wait, no, he does have a watch. And I said, well, gosh, he needs a nicer watch. So at the time, I had a somewhat decent Movado watch on. It was probably only a couple grand when I got it, and I thought, this is a decent watch. I like this watch. And I heard God tell me to sow that watch to him, give it to him. This is one of those things where God said to do it, so I just did it. I said, okay, I'm going to go give him the watch because God said to do it. So afterward, I go up to him and I say, hey, I was like, would you be okay if I sow this watch into your ministry? And he looked at me and he looked at it and he looked at his wife. And his wife teared up and she puts her face like this and she walks away. And he goes, you have no idea. He goes, I was on a mission trip in another country somewhere. I was thinking could even have been Africa or South Africa, or it was pretty far away. I don't forget the exact location. And he says, I had a watch that looked just like that. I gave it to a pastor. He goes, and now it comes back. He goes, this is God. And I thought that definitely is God, because I heard the voice and I just wanted to bless you. This is not a big thing. It's just a little thing. I just wanted to, I'm not attached to things. Things come and go. That's cool. I just wanted to share the love because wisdom was reaching me. I'm going to own this wisdom. I'm going to reciprocate. So, then I was friends with him for quite some time after that, stayed in touch, and still friends with him, just haven't talked in about a year or so, 2 years maybe. Ever since COVID, we kind of just got busy, I guess. But anyway, right after that, I did a couple workshops, and then it was like the second workshop after that, I thought, I'm ready to receive my watch back. I said, God's going to give me the watch back. Did it for him, he's going to do it for me. And I just felt it. I'm like, I'm ready. And I got up, and this is the opening day of the workshop. I put on my, my nicer clothes, not my workout outfits. I go in there, and a couple that we know came in, and, great couple. And she's like, hi, Matthew. And then her husband's like, hey, good to meet you. And they go, we brought you something. And they give me a box. What do you think the box had in it? It had a black Movado watch in it. I'm not kidding you. I said, are you serious? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well. I was like, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Yes, I'll accept that. The watch came back to me. Okay, now, that's impossible. Okay? That's impossible with no communication network. I didn't stage this. I didn't prepare anybody's heart to receive this. It just happened. And it just happened to be the one that looked just like that watch, okay? That's a God thing, okay? It's impossible to the carnal mind, but it was the only thing possible in God's kingdom. So then another, workshop goes along, and this time things are picking up a bit. There's a bigger audience. We had 50 some people at this workshop, and at the time I thought, I really want to have a great experience in this workshop. So I activated my faith, and I planted a sizable faith seed. Sowed it into the ministry that I was receiving wisdom from. And, this was a sizable chunk. And on the second day of that workshop, a gentleman who attended there sowed a seed into our ministry of 5 times the size of that. So 5 times the size. I kid you not. I wasn't passing a basket around, okay? I don't do that. I don't do the basket thing. I'm not going to try to guilt obligate anybody into anything. I don't want that. That's not a true tithe. A tithe has to come from the love, the unself love that receives immediate divine assistance. You see? And so that's just another story. And the stories go on. And that's why every Wednesday I get excited, because this is when I look at what's been gathered in the storehouse of the ministry, and from whatever I've gotten personally, I don't really, in terms of personal income, I don't take much, I'll tell you that. So I live very, very simple. There's no lavish really anything in my pedigree, okay? The more lavish I became in my past, the more distracted I got. And unfortunately, that was a hindrance to my own personal growth. So, not condemning it. I think, nice things are wonderful, but I really feel, and I know that if I have all these amazing toys and all these things around, then I have to take care of them, and then I have to think about them, and then I have to go use them, and it really becomes its own God, and that's not a God for me. Now, prosperity is having more than you need. And here's the idea. You can have more than you need every single day for the rest of your existence by being in the prosperous, uplifted Canaan state of consciousness. Okay, your holy consciousness. But you can't be attached to the things of this world and have that consciousness, because the things of this world try to steal, rob, and kill. Because the things of this world are what the carnal mind observes in its own sense of deception. Because the true things of God are not physical, they are spiritual. You see? And so back of every real desire is a spiritual quality of being that only needs to be expressed through the heart for you to step into the receptivity of what you call the physical demonstration. This is not rocket science. This is like equals like, all right? Now, in the realm of carnality, or what you call human delusion, we think that wanting equals, how we're going to get it. And want is lack. Want is strife. Want is the law of the flesh governing you by tripping you up into perceiving an absence of God's fulfillment in some capacity. And so whenever you take action from that place, because the mechanics of karma are faith, it's action, cellular, memory, reaction, okay? So what happens is that you take an action from a quality. So whenever you take an action from a quality of lack, as in, oh no, I better do something, I have no means, I better make something happen. Or I'm just so lustful over this thing, I want it, I must get it. Whenever you act from that place, your action does nothing because the fulfillment of God's creation is already done. God's created works are complete. So you're not going to add anything to God, and you're not going to take anything from God's all creation. It just doesn't work that way. The carnal mind thinks it does. But what really happens is the quality of that seed brings into your reflection, your extended body, your world, its own likeness. And so that's why people who live under the sweat of the brow, and they are plagued with the debts of this world, and they're not poor in the spirit, as in it says poor in rach in the cipher about the Beatitudes, which by the way is also what I'll be covering in the 10 money commandments, for the new Jerusalem, if you will, for the divine supply consciousness. Whenever you act from discord, you create more discord. Now, does that make sense? Of course it does. How come nobody understands that? Well, some people do. Some people do. Now, when you come from a grateful heart of joy-filled abundance, which, by the way, following the fastest path to your joy is the abundance of being joy-filled, isn't it? You see, I use words very specifically here, so pay close attention to each word. When you act from joy, then you are operating in a principle of good, something God did create. And since God did create joy, and you come from joy, and you pour that into the world, that seed multiplies and becomes more joy. It becomes increase of joy, as long as you don't violate the other principles that you're going to learn, or that you may already know. Now that is so simple, a child could understand it. But adults are morons. And so adults have to think about every little thing that they do, and they schedule everything. Like, I gotta schedule my morning poop at 3:45 so I can have my eggs at 4:15, and then I gotta be here at 5:05, and then I've got 15 minutes to talk to this person, and then at 6:45 I have to do this, and then I have scheduled at this time this, and they live under the sweat of the brow all day, every day, and guess what? That's all going away because the AI is going to take over all that. So if you don't have the consciousness of the kingdom, by now, you're pretty much planned obsolescence has already come to its fruition. See, the carnal mind has created a fictional character, a bag of bones and meat and flesh and blood and piss and snot and all this other, hideous nonsense that the carnal mind says, well, that's you. Which couldn't be further from the truth, because that thing has a planned obsolescence. Doesn't matter how much you primp and prod it or stuff things down its throat or inject yourself with anything that you think is going to give you life extension, right? Like life needs an extension, okay? What you're doing is you're just playing games with the carnal mind. And we all do it at times. I'm not going to tell you that I'm perfect and all that. Well, in spirit I am, but the idea here is that when you operate from that realm, it's just fool's gold. That's all it is. It's fool's gold. That thing, that carcass is going to be buried underground. Doesn't matter what you think, it's going to go to the ground and be buried. It's planned obsolescence. So rise up out of it now. Because unless you ascend now, you don't get to taste eternal life. You're in eternal life. You can't die a creature of error and find heaven. Heaven is at hand. So you must pursue wisdom and step into it now. All right, simple, so simple. The beauty of it is it's so simple. That's why the reasoning devils that run this crap show that they call their world, okay? It's a crap show. I mean, come on. Let's face it. It's because of their reasoning. Because their reasoning knows nothing of the things of God. Because they're not alive. You're dead in the world when you're in the flesh. Woe unto those who occupy the flesh. When someone with wisdom speaks to you, at first it should irritate you. It should really offend you. Unless you are yourself full of wisdom. Now, the next thing it'll do, if you can't get your mind away from it, is it will destroy everything in your life that is not like itself. It's a double-edged sword. And it brings fire and destruction to ignorance. So if you're living corrupt, and if you're operating outside of harmony and, being governed by the carnal mind, all of those things will inevitably come to ruin, and as they should. And then it sets you free. Because it gives you what God has allotted for you out of your heart because of the new quality of being that you reflect. Well, anyway, that wasn't the type of standing ovation that I was looking for, but, it's not, it's kind of funny to think like that, that, it's just crazy. Obviously, someone on drugs, something like that, but what I did is I filmed him because I knew that if I kept my eye on him and I kept knowing the truth, he wouldn't hurt anybody, and he didn't. He kind of fled off into the nothingness and just sort of disappeared. He walked to the end of the pier and he was gone. But anyway, what I did is I took my thought, and one of the things Mary Baker Eddy said is, healing is 2/3 love and 1/3 knowledge. So I switched my thought over in terms of, I said, there's God's child. I said, what if that were my son, And I started thinking, come on, son, come out of her. Come out of this belly of ignorance. Come out of this mind of this world that believes in, whatever this is. Whatever this emanation is, whether it's drugs or insanity, these are just illusions of this world. And so I just radiated love out of my heart center. I said, come out of her. And that's what I would keep doing. I'd just keep doing that. That's how you would spiritually treat someone who's insane, is you'd separate the insanity from God's creation, recognizing that it's the universal nothingness. It's an emanation of the womb of material creation, which has no foothold in divine truth, so therefore it can't take root anywhere. And once we separate it from the universal substance of spirit, then we have removed it from our thought, which is the only place it could ever take hold. And then we have to activate love. We have to radiate love. Because love is the healer. Love is the healer. It's not us. It's not human will. It has nothing to do with us. We see the truth, see, feel, and be perfection. So, I mean, it's kind of funny to think, that's the kind of standing ovation I get. But, maybe I deserve that kind of standing ovation. But ultimately, I'm going to address it if I see it. And I'm going to keep holding that truth, and hold that truth, and hold that truth. And eventually the deception of insanity will disappear, because it has to, because it has no place to find a rest other than in our own thought. It can't find rest other than in our thought. If I accept that that's the appearance of things, now there are two of us in deception. If I reject the appearance of that and I turn over to the fact of life, life is all, and life is intelligence, life is love, life is harmony, life is truth, life is wisdom, then I can clothe him in righteousness and see the man that God created. And that's still not enough. Then I have to step into love. And that's easy to do, because once I've separated the carnal mind from God's creation, then I can love. Because I'm not trying to love the insanity. I'm saying that's nothing. I separate that. Then I see someone who is bound in ignorance. And what do? We set the captive free. Now, I did continue to film for about 20 minutes as he seemed to go on and on, ranting and tirading and throwing around in fits and yelling and swearing. And many people came to observe this at that point. And all my work is to reject that appearance within my thought. Reject the appearance of that in my thought, and then radiate love. I'm not going to meet it where it's coming from. Then I fall into sin. Then I suffer the consequence of my own deception. I have just believed in two powers. And that's how the universal nothingness tries to trick you. And it tries to get you to step into its appearances. Is it tries to argue that herein lies some part of creation that is outside of God's governance. Therefore, it's acting on its own discord, and it's stepping into its own lawless behavior, when that is an impossibility. And we hold to that truth, and then the truth sets the captive free. And each step of the way, I renounce my own mortality. I have no position to defend. I have nothing to fight against. If I feel like I'm threatened or I have something to fight against, then I am stepping into sin, and I'm creating that discord in my own mind, where all must be purified. To be of the pure mind of God means I can't know anything outside of harmony, lest I stumble upon a stone and dash my foot against a rock, you see? And this is what we are up against. And you have just a few moments to switch your framework over from, oh, here's a problem, to, there's an illusion. Separate it from the fact